stain.
You know, amazing. I don't even know that I even thought to primer. I'm thinking, what the heck do I need a primer? I just thought to just paint it. It looks good. And it looked good.
Yeah,
it did look good.
It'll look good for a while, exactly.
And it did for 2 years.
Right.
I got to paint the whole thing again.
The primer, there's different reasons you use primer. And some of them is to condition the surface you're going to paint. Prepare the surface to paint is one of the reasons.
What to do what? To
like,
bite?
for instance, raw wood or bare drywall.
So it doesn't flake off, or to prepare?
No, it's for the paint to bite.
To bite into and stay there.
For instance, drywall, for instance.
Okay.
New drywall. It has paper. If you look at drywall, it's basically paper over this chalky
That's
stuff.
That's
true.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So if you put paint on that, paint will soak in.
Over time.
No, it'll soak in the first time you paint
it. Okay,
so
like,
you got to paint like 5 coats, and it will never have an even color or an even sheen because it soaks in.
Okay.
And it soaks in like and you know where the drywall has tape, has drywall mud here, it has paper here. Well, that's different types of surfaces.
Right. Okay.
Okay. This is drywall mud. This is paper.
Okay.
It's going to look. You put paint on it, it will have a very different look.
Oh, that makes sense.
So what primer does, primer will go on both. You have a primer that will go on that, and it will create an even surface for you to paint. And when you paint, it looks even and nice, but you put the primer on there. And the primer will bite into the drywall or the mud, and then it stands out. It actually seals the pores so that the paint doesn't soak in. Okay,
so there's a difference between the primer, which does that.
Right.
It's so it'll adhere.
Correct.
There's another one that's the stain blocker. That's a whole different deal.
Different deal. Oh, there's all kinds of primers. Oh, yes, yeah.
Which would give me the reason. Initially, we'll go back, but this is why there's a cheap paint job and a very good one.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. You don't know.
And I wouldn't have known that.
Right. And then there's different primers for wood. There's different.
And knowing the difference is very important.
There's primers for metal. There's a different primer for all these things, and there's different primers for inside and outside, just like there's different paint for inside and outside. Wow. So you have to be very careful that you put the proper product on, not whatever you happen to have in your truck. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I just happen to have a gallon of primer in my truck. It's not the right one, but I'll use it anyway. I'll save me a trip and the money. But I'll just use what I got. You want to use the right thing for the right job. Okay,
now use this as an example in my house on the ceiling where I see all this dark stuff coming through, and it's variegated. Now it doesn't look good.
Right.
And if I mention it to my wife, she'll freak out and she'll say, "You got to paint it."
Yeah. Right.
So I better keep my mouth shut. It's been painted a number of times.
Right.
Then the primer is not the issue. The primer is stain blocker.
Correct. You need a stain blocker.
And after I do the stain blocker, then paint it with a good paint,
right,
rather than a cheap paint, because the good paint will do what versus a cheap paint?